Hello, everybody. My name is Juan López, and my partner name is Samuel Ribero. And today we're going to present our first episode of our podcast, which name is Algorithm in Life, where we are going to talk about the impact of the algorithm in social life and in contemporary life, specifically in social media, which we are every day. The objective of this episode is going to be presented by my partner Samuel Rivera.
Thank you, Juan David. The objective of this episode is to raise awareness about the impact that the construction of algorithms our digital environment in the fields of choices and thought.
Yeah, that's an amazing objective for this podcast, which is complemented by our thesis, which is
The thesis, we believe that the creation of algorithmic profiles on social media in responding in individual and collective choice capacities exerting an hegemony of thought.
yeah. And first of all, we have certain categories that we're going to describe. The first of them is the capacity of choices, which Samuel was talking about in the thesis and in the objective. So Samuel, tell us about the choice capacities, please.
Okay, about the context or investigation, the choice capacity we define in is the ability of an individual to make informed and autonomous decisions within a specific environment. However, in the digital era, this capacity is significantly influenced by social media, algorithms, and online commerce.
Yeah, the online commerce is such an important topic to this conversation because in the way we buy online in certain platforms such like Temu, it can be an influence to our choice of our choice capacities, right?
Exactly, Juan David. We thinking about the an example of this can be seen at platforms like Temu, in a specific which personalize user experiences based on data collection, from searches to conversation near a device. This results is in the constant promotion of products to users on social media. This phenomenon can limit the freedom of choice as the option presented to not always emerge or from a spontaneous search, but rather from a system designing to shape user decisions according to their consumption patterns.
Exactly. The thing about this is that it can also affect other social and environmental problems such like pollution, such as the pollution to natural space. I mean, and the way that the society can behave. Also, we have the second category, which is hegemony of thought, and well, it's kind of related to the previous one in the terms of the modus operandi, we can say, from which it results, since both have the same origin that we were discussing in today's podcast. Furthermore, they also have a certain similarity in their consequence, since both manage to globalize a phenomenon that implies ability to reason in particular ways. In this case, hegemony of thought is understood as a social phenomenon that is present as a region of societies and that has evolved over time, and with the creation of new technologies, its effects on society are harmful, in that it limits the creative capacity to resolve conflicts, discriminates and excludes different ways of approaching reality, and betrays the principle of freedom of expression. Also, this algorithm, can promote ideas that can be harmful to society. It can cause differences between communities that can be reflected in physical violence and can alter relevant collective decisions, such as, for example, the presidential elections in some countries. Some examples that can help us to understand the impact of the algorithm in our hegemony, in our thinking. Sorry, and we defined three of them in three different spaces. The first one is in an international case. The second one is in a national case, and the third one is in more a local place, more like in certain region of our country. The first of all, which was the international example, we were thinking about the Olympic Games athlete boxer, sorry, who his name is Iman Khelif, the Argentine boxer, which was signalated, I guess, to be a trans woman. However, this was not true, and all of these examples are talking about fake news. And in this case, it was a fake news, of course, and it reflected the discrimination of certain people against trans women in this case. The other example that we have was in 2019, 2020, the pandemic, where in Bogota and around the country, people were saying, oh, there are a lot of people, vandalism people, that were going into the complexes, into our buildings, into our houses, and this was definitely not true. Well, not definitely, because in some cases, I guess that there were people who were doing this kind of things. However, it was not truth at all, and it was kind of fake news for some misinformation platforms. Oh, sorry, misinformation creators, in which in certain platforms such as Facebook, for example, such as radio, such as Instagram, for example, or WhatsApp, were saying that people were going into our buildings, and it created a lot of chaos and mm, a misunderstanding. You know what I mean? Well, that's our second example, and the third one was, well, this one is kind of funny because I lived this one. No, it was not in my region, in Bogota. It was in the coast of Colombia, in Barranquilla, where it was a fake news in a final football match. Sorry, in Colombian league, where some person, I guess, which was related to the Mayor or something like that, said that Junior was going to win the league because in the match the other rival, which I think was Atlético Nacional, make some cheating, and it was enough reason to give the Junior de Barranquilla a star. And of course, this was a fake news, and a lot of people believed that, and they went to the streets to celebrate, as coast people, I guess, uh, used to do in their celebrations, such as Carnaval de Barranquilla, etc. And well, this was like a meme, but it could be worse, in depending on the context and depending on on the case. Then we have the context, so we can explain the what, when, where, the who we are going to talk about. First of all, the algorithm is the main topic, and the internet is the medium for its development. That explains the what of our context. Then it's the when. In terms of time, contemporary era, approximately the last 15 years, or with focus on the last five, I guess, is more specifically in our time lapse to study. Then where and who, the space and the people who we are going to discuss about, or who we were discussing about in a few moments ago, was mainly Western space and population. Like, because it's our first cultural integration and context, which is kind of similarly to ours. However, we mentioned, like I said in Olympic Games case, such as the Argentine example, that it also happens in other parts of the world, and so we do not forget them. So to the analysis, to connect both categories, we were thinking like, it could be easier to do like a list of pros and cons, of algorithm in social media life. Can I say? So Samuel, what are the pros of algorithm in our social life, social media life? I don't know.
Okay, Juan, be realist. We found a short pros to the algorithms influences. I don't know why, but it's funny. We have only two pros. The pros is the algorithms allow contents preference to be better managed so that users can find more satisfaction and reasons to enjoy the social network in the social media feed. And the second is algorithms allow people of similar mindsets, and affinity to interact easily.
Yes, even though that now we're going to talk about the cons, we have to accept that at the end, algorithm is not bad at all. Well, not as not at all. You know what I mean? Um, but it also have some consequences that are not good to our society. The first of the consequences that it has, it could be like it invades and betrays the principle of privacy and confidentiality, especially for the ones that do not know about this. The people who don't read the little letter that is in the terms and conditions of every time we want to use some social media platform. We do not read this kind of things, and unfortunately, these kind of principles are being affected in some way. So, yeah, we don't think that this algorithm could be good for these principles. In second place, we think that it can viralize points of view that limit freedom of opinion. For example, for political correctness. I don't know how to explain this like too much because I need to be brief. However, it explains mm, that there should be an only way to think about certain problems, and we are not able to see others' point of view. So it at the end hegemonizes the thinking of people about certain topics, such as, for example, the Junior de Barranquilla, or the people getting into our houses in Bogota, or the case of trans women, sorry, in the Olympic Games. In third place, we believe that it limits the knowledge of other points of view that may be contradictory or different from on one owns, sorry, by not displaying content that is not related to individual points of view. It's kind of related to the other one that I said before, but it's at some point different, where we are not going to see in our feed some other people beliefs, in order to we have a nice experience in the platform. However, It's also good to us to understand others' points of view, other perspectives. And well, that's all. In fourth place, we also believe that it involves population control of digital users, in this case, regarding their behavior on social media platforms, unifying their experience in them. Basically, an explanation of the last point. And finally, we think that it affects users' interactions with advertising in every possible way through emails, through videos, ads, readings, etc. And this is um, provoking, I guess. It has a consequences, and its consequences, sorry, is to massifying the consumption, which Samuel talked a few moments ago. Mm, and finally, which are our, like, how can both categories can be related between them? The categories of thought hegemony, sorry, and choice capacities are closely related in terms of the brain activity required for both to occur. That is both require voluntary and arbitrary submission to a certain entity, in this case, a digital medium, or it can be a company or something like that, in order to develop a particular way of thinking that can be modeled to the wheels of social networks and other uses, as I said before. We said that it can be a voluntary and arbitrary submission in the way that, well, first of all, start with the submission. Understood as an exercise of dominance that responds to a will recognized as superior. This can be accepted voluntarily or not. In algorithm, its potential consequences, in the case of voluntary acceptance, this occurs when even though people are aware of the algorithm and its potential consequences, they will still submit to it, and it will be, and it will, and they still submit to its will with the goal of stimulating leisure or global interconnection at the cost of experience, the hegemony of thought, and an alteration in their ability to choose, motivating them to consume. On the other hand, an arbitrary submission refers to the algorithm to which people are subjected to that are unaware of the condition of privacy in data processing, and this consequently results in groups of people who are vulnerable to will of other users or companies who are aware, of course, of the algorithm and how it works and how it they can use it to take some advantage to others people's thoughts and beliefs, um, such as the minor people or an adults, like they are not aware of this kind of conditions and privacy, so they do not know how the algorithm works. So first of all, we have the arbitrary submission, and the other one it's like a voluntary submission to this algorithm. mm, and to explain these categories and the how does our case can show as a global phenomenon. We believe that the examples that we mentioned before, such as the Olympic Games, like I said before, the Bogota example, and the Junior de Barranquilla example, are enough to conclude that there are some relation between algorithm and the way people believe, think, and how they can act regarding the situation. And well, just to clarify, Samuel, how can you relate the situation? How can you relate this thesis that we have to the class, the 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 knowledge that we are acquiring by going to this class?
Okay, the content to the class we gave to us the so much readings for the globalization context. For example, we have two reference with that analyze the our investigation. For example, first is Soshana Subov and Michelle Rostrulot. Soshana Subov mentioned in this age of surveillance capitalism in 2019, platforms like Google, Facebook, and Amazon collect data to predict and modify consumer behavior, thereby restricting autonomous decision making. This example illustrates the concept previously mentioned by Juan David and me. And the concept globalization, Michel Roth-Trulot with points out in Northern Atlantic fictions, the global North has constructed heroes, sorry, narratives that legitimize its economic and cultural hegemony. In digital commerce, these fictions translate in the prioritization of values, trends, and products that align with North Atlantic consumption logics. In Colombia, this is evident is how algorithms tend to prioritize mercadines and aesthetic allied with the these dominate imaginaries. In conclusion, the concept North-Atlantic fissions and the capitalism's surveillance says to us the problematic with analyze is present in our society. With Temu, with apps, we how them uh, control our decisions, are all of that we are thinking or our choices. And that, Juan David, what do you say?
Where yeah, I can understand the way that this debate can be related to the topics that we have seen in class, such as the North Atlantic concepts that Samuel was saying before. But however, we do not have much time to keep talking about this because it's getting kind of late to us in terms of the time, and we do not want the teachers to listen a 20-minute podcast. Or well, if you want to, you can. But we believe that this is a prudent time to end our podcast here. So I'm going to finalize our episode called how are we calling algorithm life. Sure, it was algorithm life. And to conclude, that the impact of algorithm on people's mindset can be decisive in understanding phenomena associated with consumption, choice making capacities, and information about the physical reality in which we find ourselves. We believe that these kind of algorithms can affect a lot of things that we can see in our daily life, in our contemporary era, which we were taking as the context. Well, it depends on us to still being to still have a submission to it, or to change our mindset, to see our points of view, to achieve some of our goals despite the ads, the announcements, which we can see everywhere. We can see everywhere. In our food, we can see also um, propaganda. So, so yeah, that's our invitation for you to have some awareness about the situation, and how can you by yourself can, like, taking some actions to stop being part of that. So yep, that's our reflection, and that's everything. Samuel, thanks for being here with me. and to discuss
No,
about
thank
this.
you for inviting me. I am sorry, but my pronunciation, I am feeling some sick. So I try for us.
Yeah, the important is to try. I I would like that the teacher will like this podcast and our content, so we can do maybe more podcasts in future days. So that's
Please.
all, people. That's all, people. Thanks for
Thank you.
everything, and we will see in another episode of a podcast.
Bye
Have a good night.
bye.
Bye bye.